Gentlemen, sent in a question. Have you seen the original script for Rise of Skywalker, Duel of the Fates? What are your thoughts? If you could change Rise of Skywalker, how would you? So, if you don't know the specific details on this, way back 2014-ish, Kathleen Kennedy hired all of kind of the hottest directors in Hollywood. Actually, through 2014, 2015. She was just trying to snatch up everybody that made $1 billion that was in the sci-fi realm. Anyone that did something that had like a high energy, just everyone that was a high-profile director, she just snatched up. Jurassic World comes out. It has this gigantic opening, like record-shattering opening right there next to what the Avengers did a few years before. So right there, Jurassic World is back, directed by Colin Trevorrow. So, Jurassic World, sci-fi, big, gigantic adventure, a lot of clear crossover of genres with Star Wars. You could see how someone that was good at a Jurassic movie would be good at a Star Wars movie. So Kathleen Kennedy hires this guy to come in and do the third movie. 3 different directors for each movie in this trilogy, and sent him off to go write his script. Jump forward a few years, and Last Jedi comes out. It's very polarizing. People are pretty torn. And in that time, Colin Trevorrow puts out a movie after, it was like the book of something. I forget the name of it offhand. He puts out a movie, and it doesn't do very well. It kind of wasn't well received, didn't make money. And the script that he'd written was kind of a follow-up to Last Jedi. And they decide this just isn't the right direction to go. And they decide to toss out what he was planning on doing, which was this Duel of the Fates, and instead decide to do basically, let's do the safest thing to try and appease everyone that's mad at us over Last Jedi. And in doing so, made a movie that made no one happy, Rise of Skywalker. Pretty much everyone was, like, annoyed. So if you're a Last Jedi fan, you're like, why did you ignore everything I loved? And if you didn't like Last Jedi, you're like, why are you treating me like I'm stupid and pandering to me and just cobbling something together? It's real obvious what you're doing here. So over the last couple of years, the script for Duel of the Fates has gotten out there. You can read it. You can know some concept art for it, and essentially know this alternative third chapter to this trilogy that would have closed out the saga. I have not read the script myself, but there are a number of videos on YouTube where people did read it, and they kind of do a plot breakdown for it. And so I've watched a number of those, and after he asked this question, I watched a couple more of those to kind of refresh my brain. The big improvement, the thing that's in Duel of the Fates, where they just unbelievably drop the ball, is with the Finn character, who becomes kind of this Spartacus-type character that's a former stormtrooper that leads this rebellion of former stormtroopers, and it completes his arc. And it's so clearly what his character should be doing in this trilogy of films after what they set him up to be in The Force Awakens. And then they do nothing with him after that film. He's just kind of wandering around yelling. And in Duel of the Fates, they actually complete his arc and do something interesting. The idea of a former stormtrooper that's a little force sensitive, or is force sensitive, leading a rebellion. I believe it's on Coruscant, and so Coruscant plays into it, which is another one of those things, like it's such an important place in the saga. If you're talking about the Skywalker saga, it's so pivotal, and we never see it in the sequels. And so then you're going to go to Coruscant. There's a lot of time spent there. And Kylo Ren's arc was totally different. Rey's ultimate fate was totally different. The problem with the film, though, is the same problem with all the other movies in the sequel trilogy, that it wasn't the product of one storyteller with a vision. Like, even when you come to the original trilogy, George Lucas didn't write all of them. George Lucas didn't direct all of them, but he was the visionary over the entire thing that had a cohesive idea of what he wanted to do with Star Wars. And as you go through the original trilogy, whether he was writing it or not, it was very much what his vision through other people. Filmmaking is always collaborative, but it was just like a version of that where the person that was the most powerful wasn't actually the director. And when you get to these movies, they didn't have that. They didn't know what the sequel was when they were writing Force Awakens, or even what they wanted it to be. They didn't have even a feel for it. George Lucas changed his vision. It's well documented that he didn't actually know what he was doing with the original trilogy. But it was still this one guy that knew what he was trying to capture, and he was figuring it out as he went along. And this is a group of people passing the baton. Like, you know, what some of the screenwriting exercises or writing exercises where I write something, pass it off to the next person, they write the next paragraph, pass it along. And it just, like, you get everyone's flavor, but you don't have anything cohesive about it. And that's still what Duel of the Fates felt like. He had his own, Colin Trevorrow had his own thing he wanted to do with these movies. And it kind of was following up what came before, but it was kind of just his own thing. So to the question, other piece of this, what could you change in Rise of Skywalker that would improve it? The problem isn't how do you fix the one movie in and of itself. The problem with the sequels is that they needed to pick either a storytelling producer that was over all three of them. He didn't necessarily write all of them. He didn't necessarily direct all of them, but he was the guy that was shepherding the whole thing. The Kevin Feige of the sequel trilogy. Or just hire one guy in his team, whether that was JJ, whether that was Rian Johnson, whoever it was, pick one guy and trust them with the trilogy so that there was some singular vision to what was taking place across the films. It didn't feel like they were competing. It didn't feel like each director and storyteller and screenwriter had a different thing that they loved about Star Wars that they were trying to capture. Because there's even things that we blame Rian Johnson for, but it was J.J. Abrams that put Luke Skywalker on an island somewhere, off on his own. So Rian Johnson had to come up with a reason for that, but that was handed to him. He was stuck with it. So, and JJ didn't need an explanation for it, and Rian Johnson didn't choose to do it. So it's like this kind of pass the script, pass the story along game, rather than trusting one person to do it right. And that's what they needed to kind of make the whole thing better. Everything's better if they build on each other and pay things off. Everything is worse if it feels like they're competing. I like Rise of Skywalker significantly less now than I did a few years ago, because by the time we got to the end of it, there was so much promise in the first film that was never actually delivered upon. So if you haven't checked out Duel of the Fates, any videos on it, go check them out. It's interesting to see what could have been. Some things about it are better. Some things are more interesting. It feels like an actual person's vision for Star Wars rather than what we got, which was a course correction. Let's play it safe. Let's try and appease people. And in doing so, they made no one happy. Whereas Duel of the Fates actually felt like someone's actual creative vision. So, but it's worth checking out. Most of these clips are pulled from my weekly Patreon live stream. Join at any level, and you can join the chat and ask all the questions you want. That's for as little as $2 per month. For $5 per month, you can get your name on my end card. For $25 per month, you can have a monthly video chat with me. Link is in the description for more details, and keep talking movies and TV too much.